When I woke up this morning and started eating the marshmallows in the box of Lucky Charms in my cabinet, I got around to reading the poll results from this week. No, God! Strawberry milk went literally everywhere. The ceiling, my dog's nose, and the moon were all covered in its great embrace. Can you beat Fallout New Vegas while upside down? Yeah, that's been done before. You should do something that is original, you worthless piece of shit. Can you beat Fallout New Vegas by only moving backwards? Yes, that's also been done. Do you have any redeeming qualities outside of being a femboy? Can you beat Fallout New Vegas while upside down and backwards? Oh my dear Watson, you're the most intelligent minority that I've ever had the privilege of busting inside a sock to. The rules of the femdom session for today are pretty simple. Flipping the monitor display like a true Chad. The first time that this setting has been useful since the creation of mirrors or slices of bread. I could really go for a thick peanut butter sandwich right now. Hold the fluff though. Don't move forwards, just as it says on the tin. Avoid pressing the W or Q keys. For those peasants who play on consoles like the refrigerator, I'm looking at you, Todd Howard. That means we're not going in the direction that you were looking in while in first person. Very hard and hardcore enabled, because I love paddles more than I can comfortably say on YouTube. With all those out of the way, you may have noticed something a little bit different about this video, and no, it's not my hair. Much like Spider-Man fighting to avoid succumbing to the temptations of the suit with the color opposite to white, I fight my horny nature every time my bipolar kicks in. It's a lot like Spidey sense, except I can't dodge projectiles or beat up old ladies for cranberries. It has to do with empathy or something like that, for the latter part there. Now that I've wasted 330 words of your time, let's break all 206 bones in our body and get groovy like those dudes at car lots. After answering the hardest question on any test and making the most basic bitch I can formulate, I took my first steps. Oh my easy Pete, this reminds me of the time that I had 27 ounces of fudge on a road trip and had to stick my head out the window and set loose a substance that ran down the whole length of the car. Thinking back on it now, I'm pretty sure the car behind us had to turn on the windshield wipers. After getting to the oddly shaped object on what felt like the other side of the planet and hitting some buttons, I go for an intelligence and luck build. Hey, I'm nothing if not consistent. If at any point you're like, hey, why is this fucking idiot walking backwards? Please reread the title of the video and consider that you don't need shrooms for this one. Guns, repair, and survival were selected for my tag skills, and I'm pretty sure you've already managed to guess that Logan's Loophole and Skilled were selected for the traits.
Nice.
As I walk backwards to an older version of Johnny Sins, let's take a moment to appreciate how stupid this challenge really is. My plan, if there really was one to begin with, was to grab myself by the gonads and stumble backwards through Death Call territory. While in normal playthroughs that is a piece of angel food cake, I get to have the wonderful occurrence of having a stroke every 3 seconds. After throwing my ass back harder than I do on COG after a hard shift at work,
Stop it. Get some help.
I managed to get to the schoolhouse. Now you may be thinking to yourself, wouldn't the vacuum asphyxiation tucking system assist in combat for once? Let me tell you something, you're just as much of a bitch as I am for thinking that. That sucks, and will always suck Donkey Hair's pubic hair braid, but eventually with the help of the broad machete, I'm able to spend at least 472 seconds hacking into the terminal because some grilled cheese looking like owl didn't have a high enough lockpick to do the other fun minigame. Now I want you to pay attention to this clip really closely, okay? See anything? I open the fucking locker like a vibrator with no batteries. While I walk around Good Springs and try to make it down the road, why don't I tell you about the time that I was making a delectable recipe. I was in the kitchen, preparing my usual late night snack of pickles and Cheetos when I heard a bang on the door. I assumed it was my neighbor returning my jar of peanut butter I let him borrow for an experiment, so I went to answer it. It wasn't my neighbor. It was a newspaper with a headline of, "I love pickles, and here's why you should too." That moment was when I finally knew that I was a successful member of society. Sometimes we feel like we're out of place, but finding like-minded people can change that. If you are feeling the same way, you should totally check out the channel's Discord. It's a 2-part server with both wholesome and horny sections. I look forward to seeing your fine self there. After spending roughly 5 times as long as what I really should have spent, I managed to get to Gene skydiving. Here's where things kinda went for a little bit of a twist. Not having planned out anything and just jumping into a situation like that scene in Saw where that dude pushed the chick into the pit of needles, I realized that I would need to go to Hidden Valley later in the game anyway. So why bother going through Death Call territory? Getting to Hidden Valley itself on a regular day is pretty simple, but going through Black Mountain can prove a little bit tricky, even for moderately experienced players. Adding the whole thing of being upside down and having to walk backwards makes the navigating of tight crevices and centaurs a little harder than that one time I made out with a Wendy's Frosty. There really isn't a story there, but you should definitely give it a shot sometime when you put together enough funds for the ensuing medical bills. After dying due to some bark scorpions, something that I never thought would happen, I changed gears and headed towards Salone. Now normally from Hidden Valley it's a pretty straight shot, but due to the fact that I'm a glorified confrontational tampon and the large collection of rocks that have a tendency to want to grope my rear, I decided to stick to the road. This allowed me several moments of appreciating once again how stupid this idea really was. When I do these runs, they aren't typically speed runs, because this isn't really a run and more of torture than anything. I decided to not heal Snuffles. May he rest in peace, or use 1% of his true power to heal himself. Anywhoosies, I did get to the scary sign when I realized what I realized just now during editing. I'm like a sucker, but the kind that are actually terrible. Imagine failing the one job that you have. That would be dumb. After using the stealth boy and walking all of 10 feet, or 3 meters for those of you who are more intelligent than the rest of us, I ran into a rock. It was here that I squeezed my cheeks together like I was trying to prevent an alligator from taking a chomp on my joystick, even though it doesn't even get remotely close to the water. That is not to say that I didn't die several times from the abominable snowmen that live in these parts. I like to think that all Deathclaws are just Snorlax that haven't been able to eat or sleep for at least 7 hours. Imagine starving your Pokemon just so they're more effective in combat. While this is incredibly scary, it wasn't bad as a Subnautica video, and I was eventually able to get to Repcon headquarters, where at least I was able to get out of the range of the clawed beast, and head towards the needle-infested outskirts of the strip. If I had my way with Freeside, I would wait until the night, where I could just stealth kill everyone, drag all of their bodies into one place, and set them all on fire with hairspray so I could convert it to bone armor like I do in the forest. For legal reasons, the last 47 words were entirely a joke, and I do not wish harm on anyone except for people who have inappropriate thoughts about children and Barney. That purple dragon is for me, and for me alone. Not having enough caps for the credit check, I make the decision to stumble into the Silver Rush, wait for the triggered mock cutscene, and steal a few items to sell. This of course involves multiple visits to the bathroom to deal with my nuclear diarrhea. Being that I'm such a low level, however, Gloria does not have a glorious amounts of caps, so I needed to go to Blake and Verdantron to sell a few things, only to have to run back through Freeside. Along the way, I met one of the few people that really want some feed pictures. Listen folks, you aren't missing out on anything but some well-maintained talents. Passing the security check and walking into the tops, I level up 3 times, allowing me to drastically increase my speech. Me now being the charismatic enigma of the 16th century, I spent a minute or so just trying to find Swank. Keep in mind that everything is flipped for me, so I really thought that this was his side of the counter, when in reality it was actually the other side. Eventually I convinced Swank to let me have my weapons back, and have some alone time with Benny. But I saw him just standing there, menacingly, at the wrong place. Somehow, not hard to believe with how my hands feel like Jello Poke cake left outside in 107-degree weather, I must have clicked the wrong option. After trying to kill him outright didn't really have the effect that is desirable to such a distinguished individual as myself, I convinced him with some mentats to head back to the presidential suite. You may be thinking to yourself right now, Owl, why didn't you grab the Black Widow perk for this run? That's a great question, Hot Stuff. The answer is something that you may find disappointing. My abilities as an individual are a lot like merry-go-rounds. I can ride things really well and play some cute sounds, but outside of that, I just keep going in circles. Speaking about going in circles, that is exactly what I felt when I made my way back to Yes Man. It was like the whole casino was backwards for some reason. There's a perfectly good reason that has already been discussed multiple times throughout this video, but I feel like leaving a sense of mystery for those who are absolutely baked right now. Yes Man gives us a list of everything that we need to prepare for school this year, and I start making progress on the local ones. Do you know how difficult it is to read upside down? Let me give you a hint. It's awful. First up is the Ultralux. They are easy enough, as all you have to do is talk to Mortimer. At this point, enclosed areas were pretty simple to manage. Sure, I went the wrong way every 3 seconds, but I knew where I was going. So much so that I was even able to do some speedrunning strats to get through the door faster. After walking across the strip like a wasted NCR soldier, I ungracefully danced my way into Lucky 38. For the endings that don't involve you working with Mr. House, you need to kill the wrinkled man in the tube behind a few locked walls. Even with most runs, I tend to die trying to get at the terminal and door in time. This playthrough, I died a lot more for obvious reasons. If you have meaty fingers, you'll understand the pain that I felt when I equated to constantly hitting the wrong buttons on phones, and accidentally calling the FBI to confess my plans of domestic terrorism. Please note that I'm referring to blowing up Hoover Dam in the video game known as Fallout New Vegas, and that this is my shitty attempt at humor. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. After killing House, doing the moonwalk to Gomorrah, buying some illegal substances, walking out of Gomorrah, and fast traveling to the Crimson Caravan, I start making my way to the Boomers. You can tape my completely new body to a ceiling and leave me there for 16 hours before I'd willingly let you all seduce me into doing this run again. Walking anywhere in the open world is awful. It involves you frequently turning around looking for landmarkers and hoping that you are going in the right direction. Now if you want to try this run for yourself for some inexplicable reason, don't underestimate those sexy lines down on the bottom left. The compass is ridiculously useful when combined with the map markers you can place in the Pip-Boy. If you have a semi-okay knowledge of the map like this version, you can place a marker where your objective is and walk backwards while facing the opposite direction, effectively allowing you to walk straight, but in the other direction. Basically, Owl is big-brained, and this is a flex towards my knowledge of cartography that will prevent me from having any lasting relationships. Getting through the boomer's defenses was something that made me really want to give up. If you were playing normally, you can just hug the left side or wait in the buildings like someone in Chastity, but if you have no clue which direction is up or how to tie your zipper, you end up dying multiple times. But with a lot of lube, some turbo, and an innumerable amount of curse words, I managed to get through the traumatizing situation and talk to Pearl. Of course, I'd normally interact with these factions a little bit more, but I'm already struggling enough, so we're going to be passing on expanding my suffering any longer than what it really needs to be. Next up, the Brotherhood of Steel. Given that we'd already discovered the valley that is in the Land of Dust, it was nice to just fast travel and walk around for a few minutes trying to find the bunker like usual. I'd really hoped to just shoot at them and then leave, but that wasn't much of an option as the door shuts behind you as soon as you walk in. After meeting the people who really don't like latex and getting a new collar for my collection, I walk around a little bit to find the bunker for the Ranger. With my high speech, I was able to convince him that if he stuck around, he would be placed in the receiving end of a gangbang. Remember those centaurs that I just ran away from, like that one game that took the world by storm for months? Well, it turns out that they followed me into Hidden Valley, so when I tried to leave, I was forced to have a few run-ins with them. At one point, I had reached what I had thought was the door of the bunker, only to realize that it was the same one that I had left moments ago. This was awful, and after several deaths, misdirection, and killing the centaurs, I was able to get back to the bunker, where I had to part ways with my explosive collar. It's a sad day indeed. The part that I've waited for as long as possible to avoid is now here. I need to go to the Great Khans. Normally, this part is kind of boring, as there is only a few raiders and geckos between Vegas and Red Rock Canyon. But given that combat is harder than my erection when listening to ASMR, it made this journey hell. To make this a little bit more interesting than me just walking across the desert, getting shot at, and wanting to rage quit when some fire geckos jump me, I've got a story to tell you. I have an appreciation for household appliances. They really make your life easier. Have dirty clothes? Throw them in the washer. Have dirty dishes? Throw them in the dishwasher. Sure, they use a lot of water, but my existence isn't good for the environment for tons of other reasons that we'll have to cover another time. During a time of my life that I was living with a girl, I know, hard to imagine, but stick with me here, I was in charge of doing this household task in exchange for other services. I was taking the clothes out of the dryer one afternoon when I somehow managed to get stuck. And now I'm sure you've heard of something like this happening on forums for various dryers, as it's a common issue, but I'll continue nevertheless. Kneeling on the ground, shoulders blocking my exit, I called out to my girlfriend at the time to give me a hand in getting out. It was unbelievably loud, as the inside of the drums seemed to make the yells more intense. But after a little while, I heard footsteps, and upon their stop, a slight chuckle. I don't know if you've ever been on one of those rides that launch you up and down in amusement parks, but if you have, you know the exact feeling in the prostate I felt when I heard that chuckle. Those other services that I mentioned moments ago, here's where that came into play. My sweatpants slid down, revealing my freshly shaven rear end. I couldn't see the texture of my skin, but I knew by the end of it had red handprints all over it. Some of the tribal dwellings littered around Red Rock Canyon also had handprints in them, but I didn't get a good look as I was only there to get the quest marked off and maybe eat a few cans of Pringles. Why are they so addicting? Walking backwards with crippled limbs into the Tops Casino, I decided that I need to prepare a little for the final battle. After all, I still don't have any good gear, and virtually have no caps to my name. Since I have at this point a 9 in luck, I figured that I could destroy a few games of blackjack and be on my way. While that is essentially what happened, it was really trippy seeing the cards on the other side of the table. Cashing out, I grab Yes Man and take him back to Lucky 38. Watch a demonstration, and turn in all my quests. It's pretty sad that those 23 words summarize roughly 30 minutes of my life. This character is about as graceful as the cousin who always seemed to get hurt at family gatherings. That being said, I wanted to grab some combat armor for some extra protection. I would make a condom joke here, but none of them really seemed to fit. To get the armor and save myself some cash for healing supplies, I wanted to go to the wreckage that most people go to at the beginning of the game with the Van Graff armor and weapons. This was a terrible idea. I spent another 15 minutes here running around trying to find it because I wasn't trying to use another map for this as I felt like it would defeat part of the challenge. Just know that I have very few regrets in my life, but not going to Gamora and making the caps there is definitely one of them. At least there you could get a set of combat armor, even if it looks like something a 3-year-old would draw after having a juice box and a Lunchable. The pizza one is so good though. After finally getting the armor, I orgasm across most of the Mojave. See, in order for me to get to the substation, you need to walk. That's literally it. Just walk. So can someone tell me why it was so f***ing difficult? Just when I thought I had it, I ran into some rocks or was somehow heading in the wrong direction. This shit was stupid. So I'm gonna tell you a story about a time that I was stupid. As a young boy, I helped my father in the shop every now and again. I was never really strong enough to help lift things, so I was always trying to prove myself by grabbing tools or doing monotonous tasks like waxing. My dad worked on restoring cars. As someone who is now detail-oriented and an artist themselves, his stuff was ridiculously impressive. He'd take a completely rotted out vehicle with good bones and fix all the divots, rust, and repaint the whole thing. All of the cars he worked on would now be considered classic, but at the time, they were just nice vehicles. He was working on this one in particular for about a month, as more of a hobby than anything, as he still had a day job at the body shop down the road a little ways. Being the helpful child that I was, I decided to go out to the shop and help Dad with the car, without him being there. I took 70 grit sandpaper along one side and really cleaned up the paint. To some of you, that means very little. The others, you just cringed and your pants with diarrhea so intense that I can smell it from here. Bodywork, from what I can remember, usually uses 360 to 400 grit sandpaper before priming. The higher the number, the less material is actually taken off. Using 70 grit sandpaper on a fully painted car is reason enough for any man to kill his son. It's a miracle that I'm still alive today. After finally hitting a few buttons on the terminal with no repercussions because the NCR has even more femboys than the Legion, I get back to the Lucky 38, enter the elevator, and start the final battle of Hoover Dam. While I did originally just intend to play this as more of a pacifist, the assault carbine we picked up at Venetron really seemed to be eager to do some work. I started tearing through these skirted men like me at the National Furry Convention. Not my fault that my thermal vision picks them up so well. They are literally in a fursuit. With the help of the Skiratrons at first, it went relatively well. After going inside, I'm able to lure some legionaries over to the NCR guarding a control room to sneak in and talk with everyone's favorite Chaos supporter. Hitting a button allows me to head up to the surface after roughly 10 minutes of being lost and getting flashbacks from the sewers and dust. The camp itself was pretty tricky. For some reason they all decided to attack me at once, so I had to try to use the circle strats to dodge them. Normally this is again pretty easy, but not being able to really see and pay attention to behind me was awful. So many times I fell down into the trench that is along either side of the giant gate. Is it bad to say that I never even realized that these were here? Laney's himself was a piece of free ash like usual, and I was able to seduce him like every bard and dragon encounter in Dungeons & Dragons before talking with General Oliver and watching the best cutscene of all time. This proves that you can beat Fallout New Vegas while upside down and backwards on very hard and hardcore settings. This video wasn't quite as hard as my video on Lonesome Road at level 1 or Dust, but it definitely was pretty close. It's interesting at first, having to adapt to the issues, but like the first time I went ice skating, I ended up relying on the railings more than what I really should have, and struggled to actually learn what was happening. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider checking out my last one. In it, we take on the Mojave as Rick Grimes, and are even armed with a Colt Python. Don't forget to check out the Discord link in the description if you haven't already, and hey, you have a good one.